I've already talked about down tuning as a tuning technique, and I've talked about drop tuning. I used an example of drop D tuning. I'll put links to those videos down in the description. What I'm going to look at now is what happens when we combine those two things together, as they quite often are in alternative metal and new metal and those sort of styles. So when I say combine them together with down tuning, we're tuning down all of our strings lower than standard tuning, and with drop tuning we're also going to alter our E string down to a different note. In this case it's going to be down 2 frets worth, so a full tone in E down to a D, but with the drop tuning it's going to be slightly different. It's going to be an E flat down to a D flat. Now, as in the last video when I looked at the drop tuning, I'm going to play, I'll use a song as an example. I'm going to use One Step Closer by Linkin Park, and I'm going to do exactly what I did before. I'm going to have a quick play of a couple of riffs, and I'm just going to do it in standard tuning as though I was too silly to read the music properly and understand that it should have been retuned, and I just cracked on and went ahead with it. Then I'm going to retune the guitar as it should be for the piece, using the combination of down tuning and drop tuning, so that you can see the difference it makes and hear the difference it makes. Start with the intro riff from One Step Closer. This will probably sound recognisable because it's quite a distinctive riff, but it'll not quite just sound right. So you can probably, if you ever heard the song, you'd probably guess what the riff was, but something's not quite right about it because half the notes are out of tune, but the rhythm's quite distinctive anyway. The next riff, I'll play one of the riffs that uses some chords, and because the chords and we're playing notes together, it will really sound out of tune, and I'm guessing it will sound out of tune and quite bad. So the bit where the band enters and comes in with all the drums and everything, sounds terrible, absolutely horrible. So that's me pretending that I haven't read the bit about the tuning and just cracked straight on playing the notes as they appear on the tab. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cut so I don't have to waste your time watching me retune. I'll get it into drop D sharp tuning, so I'm tuning all the strings down by half a step, and then I'm dropping my E string by a full step, so the E string's going down from E down to D flat, and everything else has been flattened by one semitone or one fret, and we'll have another look at it. So that's the intro with the correct tuning. Hopefully you can hear the difference between the two. The rhythm and what I played technically was all the same, it's just that the tuning was different, which made it sound hopefully a lot more like what it should have been. Now the second riff, the one that includes the chords, this is where we should hear the big difference because we won't get those out of tune chords anymore. The bit where the band comes in, so to me that was really clear to hear. Hopefully it will be to you as well. That's the difference between playing the correct tuning for the piece and not playing the correct tuning for the piece. Now, in terms of why is it being played that way, why have they done that, there's loads of reasons why they might have done that. I don't know, I'm not inside the head of Brad Delson for this piece or Tom Morello for the last piece. As I mentioned before, one of the reasons for using down tuning is to make the part sound heavier because all the notes are playing are lower pitched. It might also be for the reason of the keeping in pitch with the singer. Sometimes guitarists who've got instruments that can easily change tune will retune the instrument to fit in better with the singer's vocal range. Some singers have got higher vocal range, some have got a lower vocal range. I know for a fact Linkin Park, he's got quite a high voice, he had, Chester. So that's one of the reasons why in all types and all styles of music you might tune differently or use a capo. In terms of the drop tuning element of it, there's no reason related to the singer or the rest of the band to that. It's just a different style, and it gives you different sound, and it gives you different options of playing things that are just going to sound differently. It's a little bit tricky to explain unless you actually, the best way to do it is have a go at it, because it's easy to do the drop tuning. Just tune your E string down 2 frets width, down to a D, in this case a D flat, and you'll find that even if you're just messing about, noodling about, some of the things that you'd normally go to and play, they don't quite sound right, and that just gets your brain thinking a little bit, and you play some other things, some different things. One of the things with the drop tuning that I've used on that Linkin Park riff is it's really easy to make power chords. So rather than having to think about putting a chord shape together, your normal, perhaps your 5th chord shape, which is a common chord shape in metal, you'd be looking at, I've done a video on this, but your root note, and then you go to the next string down and 2 frets up. That's your basic power chord. If you want to make it a 3-note chord, you can play the octave note as well by adding the next string on the same fret as your 5th note. That's how you'd normally make the chord. So I've got a little mini bar chord shape there just to make my power chord. When I'm using drop tuning, then I don't need to do any of that. I can make a power chord just by putting a bar across 3 strings, which is what I was doing for the that heavy riff in One Step Closer. This isn't a lesson how to play One Step Closer. I may well do that in another video, but as an example, those sort of chords I was using, I don't have to make any fancy shape. I just have to put my finger across 3 strings. So it's a simpler way of playing power chords as well. I don't think that's the reason why, in this instance, Brad used that technique. It's perfectly capable of playing the chords normally, but it does seem to work out easier that way, particularly in a live band where you're jumping around all over the place, and the last thing you want to be doing is staring down at your instrument like a classical musician. Not that there's anything wrong with classical musicians, but when you're playing in a rock band, you want to be jumping around and doing stuff. Or at least I think I would if I was ever in a big band like that. So that's hopefully explained a little bit about using those 2 techniques together, down tuning and drop tuning. Have a go with it, you've nothing to lose. You can always tune back to normal afterwards. It will take a couple of seconds, and the main thing to remember if you couldn't do any of this is obviously enjoy.